Welcome everybody to your live market update and charts of the day for this Monday. I hope you're good. I hope you had a great weekend. Wonderful to see you here, of course, as always. And thank you very much for popping in today. Let's just pop this important message up for you to digest. And as you see, please make sure you do your own due diligence on anything you see here. Make sure you follow trading plans, and of course, make sure you manage risk on every trading action. That's on entry and exit, of course, and consistent with your own personal financial situation and trading objectives. Now, as always, we're going to look at what's coming across the news wires today. Of course, Friday, we saw a big drop. Uh, Not only did the non-farm payrolls come in weaker than expected, but there was a significant downwards revision of the previous number. So in excess of a 2% drop on the Nasdaq. And it'd be interesting to see what happens next. At this stage of futures are holding up. And part of the reason for that, of course, is that earnings are still looking strong. A walloping great 82% beating EPS expectations, which is significant. Whichever way you slice it, that's really, really important in terms of where we are right now. So, uh, as I said, US futures are pointing to the upside. After Friday's sell-off, Asian markets are mixed, with the Nikkei underperforming, the ASX slightly down, and European futures pointed to a cautious open. They did drop off towards the back end, obviously, of last on Friday. Of course, there was further selling, so it's unsure at this stage where they're going to open, although they are up slightly from Asian Open. A US dollar index dropped after that weak jobs. Likelihood of a Fed cut at the next meeting now 82% likely that there's going to be a rate cut in September. As a result of that US dollar weakness, of course, we saw gold move higher. Copper, which got belted, as we talked about in a chart of the day, towards the back end of last week after that tariff-induced major drop. And the other commodity of note is, of course, oil. We saw a end of week sell-off on that as OPEC Plus suggested that there would be a production hike in September. Of course, more supply equals weaker price, generally speaking. Bitcoin also suffered a little bit during the week. We'll have a look at charts of all of these, of course. It breached the support, but did see some buying over the weekend and into today. And as well as earnings and trade news, which are going to continue to be important. Not a massive day today. Swiss PC should be CPI, not PCI, and US factory orders, both noteworthy today. Tomorrow we've got global services PMI. That'll be interesting. And then we've got the UK rate decision on US weekly jobs on Thursday. Those are the week's highlights, really. So let's have a look at a couple of things that we can do a little bit of a deeper dive on. And let's have a look at charts. There we go. That should be good now. And we're actually going to start off with oil. You can see there that drop off towards the back end of the week. Took us beneath the 200 MA, holding up in Asia okay at this stage. But if we look at the indices, you can see again that drop on Thursday and Friday's big drop, almost record highs early in the week. As I said, a little bit of buying in Asia. Looks as though on the US 500, we have a support at around about 6,220. That was support right through here 3 weeks ago. Was the low on Friday, and you can see the bounce off that today. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next with this. Probably critical is to see if we breach out of this range here that we're in short term. So watch for a move potentially, if you like, the idea of going along on this. 62.89 would be a level of interest. Nasdaq was not that dissimilar in terms of a drop down to support and some buying again in Asia, slightly closer to the short-term range that we saw here, 22.861 Good morning, all, by the way, to Sonia and Wayne and Chris and Roger. Hope you're all good. Thank you for um, saying hi in the chat box. So lots to keep an eye on today. As I said, the Nasdaq is looking slightly more favourable in terms of a potential buy, but I'd still be potentially cautious. There's the US dollar, big drop after that jobs number, and of course, the major beneficiary of that was gold. You see the big candle to the upside that took us back over 3,300. In fact, took us up to a key level here at 3,350, which has been a regular pause point over the last couple of months. In fact, all the way back in May, it looked technically important. So a breach, let's say, let's move this up to around about 3,360. So I think a breach of that might be interesting. You can see we pulled back from it after the first couple of trades in Asia. But we've got some rejection wicks to the downside around this level here. So this 3,350 still looks important. I think this is really one to watch. And I would probably, of the major assets that we've looked at so far, put this as my chart of the day. Copper, we talked about this tariff-induced drop, um, all due on the 1st of August. This sold off on the 31st, or the 30th actually, as was potentially expected. This rise upwards completely demolished, plus the gains made in really since April. So we're looking to see if we can find some support around about 442. Way too early to consider a trade into this, but you can see a short-term range has been established. So those of you who are very brave can have a look at this. If you are interested, then 450, I would probably give it that space to be sure that we're starting to move back up for a possible move up to 463. There's Bitcoin sell-off at the end of the week, and of course we've seen some buying coming in terms of today. I don't like this. I think it looks a bit noisy. 114,000 is interesting, but it did breach out of this range between 116 and 120, which is record high. So the next move on this could be critical. So there's a few things there that are of interest with the major asset classes, but as I said, I think gold's probably my favorite. Let's have a look at some FX crosses in a bit more detail. There's that massive drop on the USD versus the yen. Some recovery this morning. This is not a bad bounce actually, and so I'll be watching perhaps this 148 level here. You can see resistance around this area here, support um, around this level also on the 29th and 30th. So that's a level of interest just to keep an eye on. In terms of the euro, again, positivity in the euro versus the USD. We've got a nice line in the sun now that it looks as though it's going to refuse to breach right now. Stemming back from here, 115.97. So let's call it 116. I think that's a really nice chart. One to keep an eye on. And if we look at the Aussie, you can see on the daily chart, we tested the 200 MA last week and then had that bounce at the back end of the week, follow through today. I'm not sure that there's massive upside in this, possibly a move up of around about 20 pips. If we look at the Aussie yen, you can see the Aussie strength against the yen, and this is a far better looking chart than the Aussie USD. Similar in structure, but we've got an upside which is more favorable. Up to 96 from 95.78, 22 pip move to the upside, and it looks pretty clean. So either that or the Euro USD are the two that I'm going to keep an eye on today. So you've got two FX charts of the day. On to the ASX. Let's just I'll have to do this. There we go. So we're still around about 0.2% to the upside. Resources are having a better day because of um, that move upwards. Let's have a look at a few stocks that might be of interest. So if we look here, you can see the buying coming back into gold stocks. Let's just put this on a daily chart. From that drop that we've seen over the last few days. That's of interest. Linus, it just keeps on flying. This is now over $11. If you look at where this sits, this would be a record close for the month. It has hit $11 before back here, all the way back in uh, March 2022. So that's looking really strong. 360 ASX, we'll keep an eye on as well. That pulled back, just be interesting to see. Got a nice line in the sand at 40.26 to keep an eye on. A lot of these are gold stocks bouncing. Let's just check out maybe Liontown. Um, so yeah, you see the pullback that we had. Um, Liontown looks interesting, perhaps if it starts to breach 84 again. Let's have a look at. We'll have a look at Cobra Resources as well. Very similar story, 200 MA there. Could be a bounce up to that level. This is an important technical level that we're at now, that we've come back down and tested at around about 167. Possible move up to 187. That's maybe not a bad call, actually. But Linus looks just so much better. We're not seeing much better than that. Let me just do a little. Most of these are gold stocks that are bouncing. Let's just have a look at PRU. Now, again, same story. Um, maybe get interested in 342. Okay, on to the US. We'll make Linus our look. Linus is just flying. We'll make Linus our chart of the day for today. If we look at Boeing, Boeing sort of interests me a little bit because it's a pullback to a level which is of interest at, at 218 there. Just see if there's a bounce off that. Our tech stocks all pulled back. There's Microsoft. That was a big earnings report, almost give two-thirds of it away. But you can see the long wick on that. That might be worth keeping an eye on. And Nvidia, of course, pulled back from again those record highs. Still quite remarkable, and still in this very much in this upwards trend channel. But now, of course, we've got a nice line in the sand. If you're very bullish about Nvidia long term, you might see this as a buying opportunity. But if you're more cautious, maybe 181 is a level to watch. Possibly worth looking at Tesla as well, who have pulled back down to that. Let's put that on a daily chart on a different template. Pull back down to every time it seems to pull back down to the 200 MA bounces. So potential move back up to 330 again. Be patient for signs of a bounce, but again, for those of you who are trading this in, out, in, possibly a move up again. But possibly my one to keep an eye on. I quite like the housing stocks, particularly with that. So we saw the home builders bounce on Friday because of that potential increase in rate cut likely. Remember, it was 50% a couple of weeks ago. It's now at 82%. So a potential move up to there. The other way to play the home builders is through the ETF. That might be worth a nudge. I'll just put that on here. So you can see the bounce off the 200 MA. So there's about 4% to be made up to 107, but a breach of 107 is where the high probability move is. So just be cautious with the US today. Don't get too um, don't get too enthused. But as I said, the futures are up, and maybe this is just a pullback. Earnings continue to support where we are now, and that's what's important. So just to refresh, we like LYC on the daily chart and move. That move over $11 looks technically significant. The Aussie yen, that level at 95.78 looks like a high probability trade to the upside. And Let's just have a look at the GB pound yen. The UK are expected to cut rates in that. I actually quite like that. Cut rates when they meet later in the week. This is a really nice V-shaped bounce on the GB pound yen. Looking back to here, I think this could fly. You'd probably look there at a move of around about 50 to 60 pips. I'm going to make that. I'm going to give you two charts of the day for FX then. GB pound yen on the 4 hourly chart, and as I said before, I like the Aussie yen. And of course, in the major asset classes, the outstanding one was gold. Worthwhile being patient for this until it breaches this 33.61. Lots going on this week, so keep an eye out for events as they happen. Of course, Inner Circle on Wednesday. On Thursday, we'll see us back doing this again at a lunchtime. For those of you involved in the EA things, if you are based in Melbourne, drop me a line, let me know, because there's a little invitation to a very sort of exclusive event that I can help you with. And also, of course, for those of you part of the EA program, we'll see you tonight if you're around and about. Either way, take care of yourselves. Make sure that you have a great day, of course, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye bye for now.